Good morning, everybody, and welcome to every third Tuesday at NoahFace. It's June 15, and today we're going to talk through employee breaks. And this is a enhancement, a further development of what we've been offering via NoahFace for employee breaks. And without further ado, I will hand over to my colleague, Jonathan, who will take us through stuff.
This is a new feature that we've added, and it's got a lot of complexity, but that doesn't mean it's complicated or difficult. There's just quite a few different things that you can do. So as I'm starting off with some of the concepts, by all means, interrupt me and ask questions, because if you miss one of the concepts, then you may not follow what I'm doing as I go through. So we'll take the time and make sure that you get, the gist of what's happening before I keep progressing through the demonstration here.
Understood.
So we have already had basic break functionality in the device, in the sense of the user can clock out and go to lunch and then clock back in. And the first piece that we added to that was we could specify a minimum break time. So in this example, you can see I got it highlighted. You can set that number to whatever you wanted. So in California, I know there's some regulations with some of those clients where they have to take at least a 30-minute lunch break. So the functionality that was there before this upgrade was, if I clock out, I can't clock back in until 30 minutes has passed. And you would receive, oops, there it was. You would receive a message like this. Hello, Joe, the minimum break time is 30 minutes. You can clock back in at this time, okay? So real basic, real simple. Came in from a customer, from one of the partners that said, hey, I need this functionality. That way we can meet regulations in California. So that's still in the system. That didn't change. If you're using it today, great. The new feature that we have is, this mostly came from some partners in Australia, but we know it will apply to the US and the UKG people, is in the hospitality industry there in Australia. They have a requirement. If you work X number of hours, you're entitled to what they call a wellness break. And that's 10, 15 minutes, whatever, to just go chill out, do whatever you want, and then go back to work. And it's a paid break, okay? In the US, some companies do that. Some companies want you to take the break, but the break's not paid. So we have added functionality of two things. You can do a paid break where we need to register within NoahFace that the user took that break for legal reasons, or there's an unpaid break, and you can still show in NoahFace that, hey, the user did take that break, but we're not going to pay them. So in essence, when it hits the timesheet, you'll see that they clocked out and then clocked back in 10 minutes later, or however long they took for their break, okay? So in the NoahFace side itself, there's a new item in here. Before, you only had three. They were register and then clock in, clock out, essentially, or if you're using attendance mode, it would say present or something like that, right? The new one now that we have is start break and then also end break. And that's how we can document that the employee took a break. So does anyone have any questions on the difference between a paid break and an unpaid break, or is that coherent to everybody? Good. Okay.
Good for me.
All right. So this is our first iteration of this. So this is breaks 1.0. As you guys look at this, you may already have a need for some of your clients. You may not have a need, and that's fine too. But as you look at it and dig into it and start to play around, if there's anything that needs to work a little bit different, or maybe change this or tweak that, we really want that feedback, and we want to know so we can go in and make some adjustments to make this feature really work for you guys, specifically from a compliance standpoint, okay? So it's 1.0. If there's something in there that's a little wonky, tell us, and then we'll go and get that addressed for you, all right? So let me show you what that looks like on the iPad. Let this catch up real quick. Okay, so I'll put my face in front of the iPad, and now you'll see that we have another option. So I'm currently clocked in. That's why that button's grayed out. And I can either end my shift to go home, or I can specify I'm going to take a break. So I want to start break. There we are. If we go look in the event log here, you'll see that I just started that. There it is. Started my break at 2:08. Okay. Then if I put my face back in front of the device, you'll see my only option is to end break, because I didn't actually clock out for the day, right? I just took a break. So I'm gonna, gonna end that break. Okay. And then fast forward a few hours, I'm ready to go home. Then I can just say end shift. All right. Normal stuff. You will notice that you lose the ability to have touchless at that point, because they're having to specify what action they're taking. Okay. NoahFace can't determine that you're taking a break versus going home, right? So you do lose that capability. Again, I think we've talked to you guys about this. If it's real critical where they want to maintain the, sorry, that's in Spanish, apologize. But that's, you can go buy these, they're 63 cents, and you give them to all the employees. They go in there.
I think we lost John.
Yeah.
No, there he is.
Okay.
We
Sorry.
lost you. What he was saying, that if you need to be able to touch a screen and you don't want to touch the screen, then one way to do it is by offering employees all of these little cheap devices.
Yeah, they throw them on their keychain, so that way they're touching their own thing. They're not having to touch an iPad, okay? So you do lose that capability, but again, that's a simple workaround. So that's the functionality on how that works. Let me show you what it looks like on the mobile. Okay. All right. So on the mobile side, same thing. I'm going to clock in. I have it here doing my location of, hey, go grab my GPS coordinates. Then at this point, I have the option of starting a break. Okay, and again, it collects the GPS. When you come back, the only option is to end the break. And then you can clock out for the day. And don't forget, you can change what those buttons, clock in, clock out, end shift, start shift, those can all be modified to whatever it is that you want them to be. Okay, so the functionality is essentially the same on the iPad versus the mobile. I do want to show you what those events look like, because they're slightly different. So in here, you'll see all the same stuff. I used mobile, I did a clock in. And you'll see it's collecting my location, okay? And then if we go look at, when I ended my break, again, it's the same thing, still collecting it each time. So that's what those two look like. So now I want to talk about the difference of, here's how it applies to UKG and how it doesn't apply to UKG. So if you're doing non-paid breaks, okay, where that's going to register an event in the timesheet as they just punched out at noon. And then they come back from lunch at 1 o'clock and they say, I want to end my break. Then that will show an end punch at 1 o'clock. Okay. That stuff goes to UKG. If you're doing paid breaks though, that never goes to UKG. There's nothing for it to populate over there. All that's going to happen is it's going to get recorded here in this event log. So if you had to provide some sort of evidence that, your employees got wellness breaks, then you have that capability here. Okay. So is that clear on what goes to the UKG side and what doesn't?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. The other thing that I wanted to show you is, here's what a wellness break looks like. Okay, so it's slightly different. The other one's pretty simple. You just go in and specify your break and you're on your way. If it's a wellness break for essentially a paid break, then when they end their shift for the day, it'll say, hey, you worked more than X hours. You were supposed to take 2 10-minute breaks. And what the employee does is they just mark them down here. Oh, I took my first break at 10 a.m. and I took my second break at 3 p.m. They specify it and then they clock out for the day. If they didn't take their breaks for some reason, then they can select the other button and then just type in what the problem was, right? Why they didn't take it or whatever. Again, won't go to UKG, but it will get reported or recorded in here. That way you do have it documented, all right? Again, some of that was a specific requirement for Australia, so I don't know if your clients or customers are going to need that functionality, but if you do in the future, if California changes something tomorrow, you now have the capability to stay compliant. Any questions on anything else so far? I was just going to show you the basics of the configuration. No, okay. So
John, is the wellness, the question that you popped up there, is that part of the like attestation stuff, or is that built into the, like if you set up the wellness break, does it automatically? I guess maybe you're about to get into all that.
Ask your question again. I didn't quite understand.
So like how do you specify between a regular break and a wellness break?
Yeah, okay, so that's done based on the config, and I'll show you that in a second.
Okay, cool.
I did skip over one item that is critical. So let's say you have your, whatever, you sold the NoahFace to Amazon, and if you did, thank you. So you've got all these delivery drivers that are gonna go out, okay? And they've decided they're gonna use the mobile app. So what you want to do is you're going to turn on geofencing, so that way they can't clock in, you know, when they're not at the warehouse to pick up all their stuff. So to do a clock in and clock out or a punch in event, geofencing applies, okay? But then as they go drive through the city throughout the day, at some point they're going to take lunch. Well, that's idiotic for them to drive all the way back to the warehouse just to say, okay, now I'm going to go take lunch. So what we've done is we disable geofencing on the mobile app when you're taking a break, because you don't know where they're going to be at in the city, right? So geofencing is of no value. Now you can collect the data, but it won't restrict a punch event. Okay. So that's a little bit of a different thing. So a punch in, punch out, geofencing applies. If you're going to do a break, we disable geofencing because we may not know where the employee is going to be or be taking their lunch, okay? So that's a new little feature difference that we have there that would apply to something like that of delivery drivers or something like that, okay?
But it's still recording the GPS like you showed, right?
Yep,
yeah. Okay.
So here I would be restricted, here I would not. Not restricted, and then the clock out for the day, I would be restricted. So that way you're making sure they're starting and stopping their shift at where you wanted them to. And then wherever they happen to be for their lunch is insignificant, right? Okay, so that's that. Let me show you some of the config options on here. So again, your minimum break still normal, still occurs. If you want this particular button to start to show up where they can have the break feature, you can do mode equals shift or mode equals break. This hasn't been updated. It's going to be mode equals break, okay? We'll get that fixed this week. But basically this just says, hey, turn on the break button. That's all it's doing. Now you can do more advanced functionality if you're needing to do those the paid breaks or the wellness breaks, okay? And this looks a little complex. It's actually fairly simple. So what you're going to do is you're essentially saying, okay, I want to call this button when they're done with it at the end of the day. We're just calling it end shift. You could, whatever, call it go home, clock out, whatever. You're going to tell it that it's going to use the break functionality. Okay. So, hey, make sure that you turn on the brakes. The next thing is, where do you want it to default? Do you want it to default to brakes taken, or do you want it to default to brakes not taken? So you can set that to true or false. Pretty simple. The this 10 number here, that's the duration in minutes of the break. So if they're supposed to take 15-minute breaks, then you change that to 15. Okay, whatever that number is supposed to be. Then you can specify how many hours before they're supposed to get that first break. So are they supposed to work 3 hours and then they get a break? Is it 6 hours and they get a break? Whatever the jurisdiction requirement is, you specify that, okay? Here we've said 4 hours. And then we're giving a default time. So if they started at 8 a.m., then they would have taken their break at 10 a.m. And so it would default to 10 a.m. for you, okay? And then the next thing is, when's the second break due? So it would be 8 hours into their shift. And then you can default when you want that to happen. So if it's 3 p.m., then you just specify a 3 there. Again, this is definitely for the Australia side. They've got some requirements, but you may have some coming about in the future on the US side. So you've got this feature in there now that you didn't have. I can always walk you guys through this, help you out with anything. If you need more assistance, by all means, reach out to me and we can look at playing around with this for you. But that's basically what we've done. So you still have your minimum break, that never changed. And then now you can specify the difference between paid and unpaid breaks and record that information within NoahFace. And then the other key thing is now breaks aren't geo-fenced on the mobile app, just the clock in and clock out for the day.
All right.
What questions do you guys have? Did all that make sense? Do you see a need for that with any of your clients here in the States?
I don't. I'll check with John and the guys and see if anybody's has this for like the wellness stuff or the. I know a place like I worked at Exxon and they made you take a break.
Right.
Yeah.
Every 4 hours. So I definitely see the beauty of deploying this for sure. I'm just not sure. I'm not familiar enough with all of our clients yet to know who's forcing it or not. So I'll definitely find out though.
Okay, excellent. I think the headline, most important thing here is our old headline of "We're here to help," right? So we don't expect you to be an expert in all of this stuff right out of the gate. If you've got a client that has a need for this enhanced employee breaks that will use potentially their mobile device as well as the iPad, that includes geofencing or not, that is paid versus unpaid, needs to have information sent to UKG or not, or whatever, we're here to help you to get NoahFace configured to satisfy what your client's need is. And after you've done that a couple of times, you'll be very familiar with it as always, and you'll be good. But don't think we're just like landing all these enhancements on you and expecting you to suddenly go and find your way through it. We'll hold your hand and help you. Okay. Okay. So a few quick updates. I want to just talk a little bit about pain points, and these are pain points at your clients. I want to talk a little bit about trial and pricing, events and trade shows, and lastly, a bit of an update on Bosstab, which, as you may know, is our partner in terms of equipment mounting. There is 2 new PDFs or 2 new pieces of information that are available that I'm going to spend a minute on. One is a single one sheet, which has just got a few different pain points on it, and the other is a bit more comprehensive. These are available to anybody who wants to use them, but possibly more important than being able to specifically use these 4 things is potentially access the thinking that's behind them, which I hope will be useful to you. So first and foremost, here's what we've experienced, or here's what we've learned, is that if we are making a presentation to a client and we're just talking about amazing technology or new systems and, you know, awesome clocks and all that stuff, it's not nearly as interesting to the client or the prospect as really talking about the pain points that exist in their business or the problems that exist in their business. And if you as a reseller can understand what is really difficult for that prospect right now, and we have a technology solution that solves that issue, then you have a good chance of a good conversation, okay? What we are discovering in the US post-COVID, of these 9 things, which are all very real, there's 2 that just seem to be very, very universal. The 2 universal things are, number 1 up here, yuck, I'm not touching that. Post-COVID, no one wants to touch anything. They don't want to put their finger on pin pads, or they don't want to do fingerprint readers and thumbprint readers. They just don't want to touch stuff, door handles, the whole lot. And so a touchless technology such as NoahFace is potentially more interesting in June 2021 than it was in June 2020 or 2019. So I don't want to touch anything is the first thing. The second thing that we're hearing a lot from our partners is the phone is ringing because the biometric device has been disabled. And what does that mean? Somebody squirted sanitizer on the thumbprint reader, the fingerprint reader, the handprint reader, and as a result, it's not working now, and the clocking device is not working. We do not encourage you to smother your iPad with sanitizer. What we're saying is that if somebody does squirt some sanitizer on your iPad and it gets wiped off, the iPad will continue to work, okay? So these are two universal pain points that we think are interesting conversation starters. And everything else on this page, from number 4, the black one, which is, you have a problem with internet or power, or number 5, which is that, oh my God, it always seems that UKG ready maintenance is going on when I don't need it. NoahFace will work through all of these situations, but go with the pain points. Don't go with just awesome technology is our advice. The second PDF is a 4-sheet or 4-page called Faces. And what we've tried to do here on the first page is just to have a really simple message, which is we have super fast touchless ready clock in. And hopefully when they look at this, they're going to say, oh, wow, it looks like it will work with a diverse group of faces, which it will. That's the first message. Then on the inside, we go to these pain points again, but we've in fact identified even more. So there's 16 ways that this technology may be useful to your client. And so, as I say, you don't have to use this piece as it is, even though you can, but maybe some of these pain points are worth bringing up. And that's that. And then the back page, I think, is a very interesting piece to help you in terms of the way you think about NoahFace. Number 1, up the top, multifunctional. You can see that there's 8 things there, and 7 of them are included in your touchless, regular NoahFace product, all included in the price. Everything from clock in and clock out, attestation, visitor management, etc., all included. And then number 8, with the red button next to it, thermal screening. As you're aware, thermal is more expensive, requires more hardware, different cost. But in a nutshell, what is the functionality of NoahFace? It's those 7 or 8 things. And then what are the features or what are the benefits? These 6 you may not have seen before, but we are touchless. We're lightning fast at every level, from recognition through to installation, through to getting new iPads. Highly configurable. I mean, there is hundreds of configurations that are possible. Affordable because of the cost of iPads. Accessible because you can buy them anywhere and use them anywhere. And lastly, unstoppable. It just keeps working. So hopefully these thoughts, whether you want these actual pieces or just the elements of the pieces, will be helpful for you. Any questions on that? Okie doke, keep moving right along. 2 things, trial and pricing. Firstly, on pricing, just a reminder, while we have wholesale pricing with you, our resellers, you can package that any way that you want. And we have witnessed resellers, some of whom are putting very low margin and markup, some are putting very high margin and markup, some are doing something different on the PEPM versus the device fees, some are bundling it and calling it all one thing. Some people are unbundling it and saying, here's your PEPM price, here's your pricing. Other people are charging a fixed quarterly price, a fixed annual price. At the end of the day, do whatever you want. You have total flexibility. What is more important than that, however, is that what we know is that with NoahFace, it's all about trial. In the last 5 or 6 years in Australia, our retention rates are insane. 99.8% retention. People only stop using NoahFace because they go out of business. In the US, we have 100% retention, but we've only been around for, 8 or 10 months. But the bottom line is, we just want you to get your clients to try NoahFace. So the two simplest, most obvious offers are shown in the top right-hand corner. Give them 90 days, 100 days free trial. All they need to do is bring their own iPads. We'll handle all of the installation, all the training. There'll be no charges to you. There'll be no charges to them. Or if they're more interested, then do half price. And the bottom line is the only difference between 3 months at free or 6 months at half price, there's no difference to them, but just the mentality of your client. Some people don't like free. Some people don't like half price. So that leads to the next point, which is your prospect. Your objective is to get them to try it, because once they try it, they'll use it. And once they're using it, they won't be ringing you and telling you it's not working, because it works. What do you need to get your client to try the product? If it's 50% for 6 months, if it's free for 3 months, tell me what you need. I have flexibility. I have latitude. I will be able to get things approved or approve things on the spot. The whole objective is just to get them to try it. Okay. Next thing I wanted to just bring up, we've been asked by a couple of resellers. We've done this historically. We're doing this right now. If you are going to be at a trade show, consider having us participate in that trade show with you and being on the stand. And what we know is that trade shows related to payroll are not the most exciting trade shows that were ever invented. And to have something that is tactile, demonstrable, visible, can make a big difference to your booth and your engagement at your booth. So if you would like us to participate by being there, by physically being there, by setting up iPads, thermal, whatever, bringing some tchotchkes, we think that that could be a really interesting opportunity for you, for us, and equally importantly for your customers, because I think that they will find it's interesting what we have to offer. And the fact that we can demonstrate it in real time with real data is really, really interesting. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okie doke. Last, by no means least, some of you are familiar that our partner, look, your iPads need to be mounted. You can use any mount you want. We have a partnership with Bosstab, and if your clients are buying Bosstab mounts and they put NoahFace in the coupon code, they will get a 30% discount. That's been available since the beginning, and that continues. What the new news here is that 2 of the Bosstab designs, Fusion and Freedom, are being phased out. Some of them are still a bit available, but long-term they're not going to be available. And there is a new range or an enhanced range, which is these 4 products called Touch, Edge, Elite, and Hub. Some of them are lockable, some aren't lockable, some are self-adhesive, some are really hard attached to the wall. The bottom line is this is a beautiful new range of mounts which are necessary. You get the NoahFace discount. And one of our resellers, I was in a deep conversation with them yesterday about this, and we did a bit of, we looked at these quality type mounts, and there's a bunch of companies that make them, and the pricing seems to be pretty similar across the board, meaning Bosstab at MSRP is not a lot more expensive or a lot cheaper than anybody else. They all seem to be priced about the same. The reason that your clients should use Bosstab rather than anything else is 2 reasons. Number 1, they get the discount. And number 2, because we have a relationship with Bosstab, if your client has an issue or a problem, we at least can have a conversation with the company and do our best to address any issues that may have come up, versus they just buy from Amazon, some other company. You know, of course, we have no recourse, like you have no recourse other than just returning the product. So I just wanted to point out that Bosstab has a new range, and it's beautiful, and that 30% discount remains. questions, feedback, anything that you would like to go over? Firstly, any questions from today with Rhonda or Niven?
I'm good here.
Okay. Here's what I want you to think about, and you may have a comment today, but I'd rather have a more considered response to this. As we continue to develop NoahFace and build out the product, what is missing? What's on your wish list? What do you wish either that NoahFace would do or that UKG Ready would do? Virtually every feature that NoahFace has today, from touchless to group punching to thermal screening, everything, all of this was a direct result of feedback from our customers and our partners. And as we are looking down the barrel of development going forward, what do you wish your payroll system, your clock, would do? And if we understand that, then we can at least attempt to build that into our product roadmap. And so we're looking for that feedback. Besides the people on this call right now, if you can share this request with your colleagues, we would certainly appreciate it. Is there anything off the top of your head that you would like to throw out as something that we should consider, or do you want to just wait and tell us about it later?
I know for me, the cost center thing was a big deal, but y'all just implemented that. That was huge. But we have a daily huddle tomorrow with the team, so I will bring that up.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So unless there's anything else, our next meeting is the third Tuesday of July, which is the 20th. We are planning to do a mini deep dive on cost centers. The bottom line is we're always available to help. We appreciate your business. We appreciate your partnership, and thank you for your time today.